from RTO here. Welcome to another edition of Retro Ranking, the show where we look more at songs instead of just albums. And today is a request that came from our live stream not a few weeks ago, and I'm going to pick my favourite Thin Lizzy tracks of all time. There's going to be ones in there that you like and everyone likes, and there's some in there that I've not included. I'm going to tell you about them in a minute. Thin Lizzy, of course, formed in Ireland 1969. They're still sort of going with some of the other members. Still haven't made any albums, but they still tour. A lot of people don't think that they should, but I'm in the camp that says yes, bring the music of Thin Lizzy and Phil Lynott to the masses still. So I've picked my top 10 favourite tracks and 5 honourable mentions. But there's some, I'll tell you the tracks that are not in there. Jailbreak, Thunder and Lightning, Boys Are Back in Town, Rosalie and Chinatown. Okay, don't dislike them tracks, don't get me wrong, but I think they're great tracks. They're all great tracks by Thin Lizzy, but they're not my favourites. I mean, Boys Are Back in Town probably because it's overplayed, like Jailbreak and Thunder and Lightning and Chinatown. They're all overplayed. You know, it's when people, what's your favourite track? The Boys Are Back in Town. Yeah, you probably haven't heard the rest of the catalogue. Do you know what I mean? I know that what I call the occasional Thin Lizzy fan. Now, if you love them tracks I've just mentioned, that's brilliant because they are great. But don't get down my throat because I haven't included them in my top 10. There's no wrong or right in this. It's just personal choice and preference. So let's have a look at my top 10. So coming in at number 10, we have a single from 1979. Got to number 9 in the UK, and it is Waiting for an Alibi. I love this purely on that bass line from Phil. And then you got some lovely guitar work between Mr. Gary Moore and Mr. Scott Gorham. Absolute beauty. Great way to start my top 10, I think. Coming in at number 9, another single. This is from 1976. Got to number 12 in the UK. Don't Believe a Word. I love that riff from Scott Gorham and Brian Robinson. It's alright, I was watching a documentary on Brian Robson last night. Yeah, what a great track. Love that driving bass line from Phil again. It's a fantastic song. Great live as well, and I also like the version, that slower version that Gary Moore done. But that's for another show, that version. Coming in at number 8. This is a song that's not a single. It's off Fighting from 1975, and it's Suicide. But I love this. I love Brian Downey's drumming in this. You got them solid riffs from Scott and Brian, and then you get a great vocal from the main man Phil. It's just a brilliant track. There's thumping bass line in it as well. Really, really good. Okay, coming in at number 7, another album track here from Nightlife, 1974. Still in Love with You. Okay, this song had a little bit of a story to it. I think it's someone in the Thin Lizzy camp tried to say that it was Brian Robinson playing the guitar solo. Now, at the time, Brian Robinson was 17. He's a good guitar player, but was he that good to play at that? because every Thin Lizzy knows that this track was recorded before Brian Robinson joined the band, and the guitarist on here, of course, is the brilliant Gary Moore. I don't care how many people try and tell me that it's not Gary Moore. I know it's Gary Moore because I am a huge Gary Moore fan, and I know when Gary Moore has played on an album. Doesn't matter what album it is, I can pick out Gary Moore. You can pick out Brian May, you can pick out Richie Blackmore. You just know that style. Okay, they did put some overdubs on it for the album, but the actual solo is definitely Gary Moore, and it's one of my favourite slow tracks by Thin Lizzy. It's a great vocal from Phil, and it's got a fantastic guitar solo. What more can you say? Okay, coming in at number 6. This is a single from 1977. Got to number 14 in the UK. It's Dancing in the Moonlight. It's Caught Me in the Spotlight. Oh, I love this track. Classic Thin Lizzy. Love Scott Gorham's guitar work, because he did all of it on here. This album that this is from, because Brian Robinson was being a naughty boy and Phil threw him out. But what makes this track, of course, is the saxophone from John Halliwell. Brilliant track. Really, really love this track. I just like that funkiness to it as well. And then you get the dum da dum dum, and then you get Brian on the drums going. Really good. Okay, coming in at number 5 then, a single from 1980. Got to number 10. Killer on the Loose. Oh, this is great. This is a heavy rock track. This has got Snowy White on it, of course, and Scott Gorham, and it's just unbelievable the guitar work between these two on this. Love the tune. It's just, and listening to it live is brilliant. I mean, obviously I was not old enough to go and see Thin Lizzy, but I remember when Black Star Riders done this, the crowd went absolutely bonkers. You know, singing the lyrics back to Ricky Warwick, and it is just terrific. And I've seen a great tribute band to Thin Lizzy called Limehouse Lizzy, and when they do this, it's a belter. It's great live, regardless if it's a tribute band or Black Star Riders or the Thin Lizzy that goes out and tours. It's just a classic, great track. Okay then, coming in at number 4, we have another single from 1983, got to number 27, Cold Sweat. Oh, first time I saw this on Top of the Pops, it blew my head off. What a great riff from John Sykes. It's just a great riff. It's one of the heaviest tracks. Great guitar work from John Sykes on this. Great guitar player. Difficult to work with and gets bored very quickly. I mean, John Sykes, what's he doing now? When was the last time John Sykes put something out? Come on, John. You're a great guitar player. Let's hear you. One of my favourite tracks off the Thunder and Lightning album. Okay then, coming in number 3. Now this is a single off the Killers live EP from 1981, and it's the brilliant Are You Ready? Another track with Snowy White on it. I love this. I love that riff. And the bass line from Phil on this is terrific. Great vocal from Phil as well. Brilliant track. Really heavy. Love that one. Okay, coming in at number 2 then. We go to 1976 and the album Jailbreak. And it's the brilliant Emerald. One of the classic tracks by Thin Lizzy. It's all down to them guitar solos and that Celtic feel. I just love it. Just one of the classic tracks. People thought, well, this should be your number 1. No, because the number 1 is from the album Black Rose from 1979, and it is a Black Rose, a rock legend. There's not much difference between this and Emerald, of course. Same sort of track, Celtic, but why is this my number one? And it's solely for one reason, and that reason is called Gary Moore. I think Brian Robson is a terrific guitar player, but Gary Moore is a fantastic guitar player, and I think the interplay between Scott Gorham and Gary Moore on this is far better than Emerald, although I love Emerald's interplay between Scott and Brian. Scott and Gary just hit the groove, and the live version of this, it's okay. John Sykes does a great version of it, but this is truly the best, and one of the best versions I heard of this is Gary Moore when he did that tribute that one night in whatever, he did a bit of that. It's just brilliant. It's a great track. It always will be my favourite track by Thin Lizzy. But I have got you some honourable mentions. We got a few more than normal because I couldn't leave any of these tracks off this list. That I've got 5 for you today instead of the usual 3. So the first one we're going to talk about is from 1973. Didn't chart in the UK. It was released as a single, but it got to number 11 in Ireland, and it's The Rocker. I think this is probably some of the best guitar work that Eric Bell did. It's a brilliant track, and I think it's even better live now. I mean, my favourite version of this is on the live album Life Live, when you get all the guitarists that have been in Thin Lizzy, they all come out and they really rock that one, and it's a great track anyway. Second one I'm going to mention is another track from the Black Rose album, 1979, and it's Got to Give It Up. I love the riffs on this. The bass and feels great, but it's Gary Moore's solo that I love. What a solo. Okay, my third honourable mention today is a song that was released in 1991 on a Greatest Hits album and got to number 35, and it's Dedication. Obviously this was a track after Phil had passed. It was just great to hear Phil's voice on a track that hadn't been released. Some great guitar work on this from Brian and Scott. It's a great track and I love it. I really do like that track in it. Some people don't, but I do. Okay, we go way back now, 1972 for my fourth. Got to number 6 in the charts in the UK, and it's Whiskey in the Jar. Traditional Irish song, but Eric's guitar work on this is fantastic, and I love this song. And I think it's one of the best versions of this song you'll ever hear. Well, in my eyes anyway. And my final one today, go to 1976 and the album Johnny the Fox and the Sun Massacre. I love this. That interplay between Scott and Brian Downey is great. It's just a brilliant track, and then of course you get that lovely rich bass from Mr. Liner and that great vocal. Well, there's 15 tracks I love, but I mean, you could be here forever because there are so many great tracks by Thin Lizzy. I'd love to hear your favourite tracks and see how many we are, because they're such a great band. And it was very hard doing this, I must admit, because I think I initially made a list of 30, and I whittled it down to 15, and I thought I can't go any more, so that's why there's more honourable mentions on this than normal. Okay, that's all for today, folks. But if you like what you see, and if you've tuned into this because you're a Thin Lizzy fan, subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll find that there are 2 other videos on Thin Lizzy. There's the studio albums I ranked, and the live albums as well. So there's plenty of Thin Lizzy for you Thin Lizzy fans, and check out all the other videos. I'll be back tomorrow for the marathon day, and it is Ladies' Day tomorrow on RTO, where we appreciate ladies in music. And tomorrow we got a band that are fronted by 2 great ladies. We are talking, of course, about Anne and Nancy Wilson, and the band that they were in called Heart. They are the driving force of Heart. Although they didn't form the band, they are the driving force, and after everyone sort of left from the original band, they of course continued on with it, and they are a phenomenal band. So join me for that. Until then, have a great Tuesday. Bye for now.